Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cap at Home. My name is Miss Allie, and today we are going to be making ABC tinfoil masterpieces. So these are really cool pieces of artwork using tinfoil, markers, and colored paper. And it's something that looks really complicated, but it's actually really easy to do and very cool looking. Alright, so I'm going to move over to my work board and we can get started. So, here we have another example of our tinfoil masterpiece. And I call them masterpieces because they really are kind of abstract masterpieces. Again, they look more complicated than they actually are, and so I'll show you what we need to make them. And I have a couple of different designs here, so you can see in this particular image I have a rectangle one, and then the one I kind of showed you already, this one is kind of a funky shape, so I'll go over both of those. So what we are going to need today is a piece of tinfoil, a piece of colored paper, construction paper. The 9.5 by 12 is perfectly fine. We're also going to need a black Sharpie or black marker, some scissors, I recommend a ruler, some crayons, some markers, and any kind of marker is fine. I recommend if you have Sharpies available, those will work the best, but if you don't, then any sort of colored markers that are non-washable will work great. And also we're going to need some glue. So I have some Elmer's glue here, but a glue stick will be just fine, or whatever you have with you. So, the first thing that we need to do is actually take our tinfoil piece. So, I have one already pre-cut, and so I'm doing sort of a rectangle shape here. And I did it, so I cut my tinfoil so there's a border on each side of the paper. So, and that'll be important for when we actually go to decorate the background. So this is sort of what we mount it on, or sort of making a thicker or more interesting background. If you don't want to do a rectangle and you want to do sort of a fun shape, you can actually cut out your piece of tinfoil any size that you want. I would just make it smaller than your actual piece of paper. You can cut it out in any sort of shape. I recommend drawing it out first, then cutting it out, and you can use that as well. Both of these techniques are fine. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to show you the rectangle one. So if I have a 9 by 12 piece of colored paper, then I cut my tinfoil down, I measured it with my ruler, traced it out with my marker, and then cut it down. And I did it, if it's 9 by 12, I made it so there's a 1-inch border on each side, so that would be 7 by 10. I also wrote that in the comments of this video, so you can be sure to check that out and make sure you get your measurements right. Again, you can do it any way that you want. This is just how I do it. So, what we're actually going to do is take our tinfoil, and the whole part of this is making something that's abstract. So we're actually using letters, shapes, lines, and color to make an abstract piece. And sometimes abstract means that it's something that's non-represented. So this is not something specific. And abstract can be sometimes hard to draw or paint because it isn't like you're looking at something. So sometimes we have some little tricks on how to help you get started. So these are actually all the letters of the alphabet. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I would just start drawing out all your letters. That's why it's called ABC tinfoil. So I like to start just going in order with A. You can do any shape or any size letter that you want. If you want to make them really small, if you want to make them really big, I recommend kind of making them bigger, or at least some big and some smaller. So it gives you sort of a different shapes that you're going to have to color in. But it also makes it better to fill up the whole page. The more you can fill up the page, the more interesting it'll look. And you can use capital letters or lowercase letters or a combination of both. And so again, I'm just going to go through the alphabet. If you need to sing the alphabet song, that works great. And then I kind of like to make some of them connecting and touching. So if you see what I just did here, I just made my E shape, my E letter, touch the B. And I'm using a black Sharpie. Again, if you have Sharpies, these work the best. But if you don't, a non-washable marker, because if you have washable markers, it'll rub right off. So you're just going to take some time and fill in all of these letters. And again, you can see how I'm kind of making some of them connect and come off each other. And I'm making them a little bit bold, so if you see that I'm kind of like making each part of the letter, like going over it, and that'll really help when we go to do our actual project. Once you fill in all the colors, you'll be able to still see some of the lines, your original letter lines. But if that doesn't really matter to you very much, then you don't actually have to worry about that. You can make them all really thin. And if you were, maybe say you didn't want to do the whole alphabet, you could do your name. You could do all the letters of your name. If you have a short name, then you could do your name more than once, or you could do your first and last name, and you could have people try and figure out what the letters are. You could write a secret message if you wanted to somebody, and when you give it to them, see if they can find all the letters. And if you see, I'm kind of moving my paper or my tinfoil kind of around. So this way, I'm kind of making letters like different sizes, but I'm also making them in different directions so they're not all going all the way across. Again, trying to fill up as much space as I can. And some of my letters are a lot bigger than others. I like to do the capital letters, though, because I think that's kind of how I do most of my letters anyway. And the reason we want to make them connecting is that it creates these other really cool shapes, so that's why we want to do that. And if you don't have permanent markers, then kind of an easy trick for this is once you finish drawing everything, you can actually take hairspray, ask mom or dad to use some hairspray, and just spray your project with hairspray, and that'll make it all stick without worrying about letters and markers rubbing off the tinfoil. So that's kind of a cool trick. Alright, I'm almost done. Again, I'm trying to fill in as much space as possible. And notice how I went in order of the alphabet, but I spread them out all the way around my tinfoil. Let's see. And it's cool to make them kind of in different directions. It really gives more of a kind of different look. So here is the whole alphabet that I have here. And that's okay, I have a little bit of space here. So now what I want to do is take my fun colored markers. Again, I have a bunch of colored Sharpies, but if you don't have Sharpies, then any sort of non-washable markers will be fine. And I want to start filling in some of these shapes. So if you see in my example here, I have some of these shapes totally filled in. I have pieces colored and covered in. I have some polka dots and stripes and some other designs that you can add in there. And this just kind of gives it a little bit more, like if you add some polka dots and stripes, it kind of makes it a little bit more interesting to look at because you're not just filling in the spaces. But a lot of these letters, and see the shape that I created from connecting some of these letters, that's a cool shape to fill in. So again, the point of this is to make it more abstract. So something that doesn't look like something specific. So utilizing these spaces in between the letters is a great idea, or creating new spaces or new shapes. I like to go in and use a couple different colors and like use one color at first, fill in a couple shapes, and then go to the next color, fill in a few more shapes, and then sometimes I go back to the first color. So I could create a whole new shape like this down here. And fill this totally in. A little tip, though, is that the darker colors that you have show up a little bit better. So some colors that are sometimes a little bit hard to get to show up are yellow, light pink, really light blue. So just so you know, that's normal. And again, I'm just kind of filling in some spaces here. And so you can really take your time with this. Take your time, make some different shapes. And again, I'm turning my paper around, or my piece of tinfoil, around, back and forth, so I'm kind of making new shapes based on how I look at it, because sometimes I might look at it a different way and feel like I see a different shape. And so that's good. Really turning things around gives you a different perspective of what you're looking at. This is kind of fun and relaxing. I love doing projects like this because I can really take my time coloring, really fill in some space. Coloring is one of the best ways to relax, I think. It's sort of like you're making your own color, like your own coloring book page. And you can even divide some of these shapes too. So like say the middle part of this A, say I only want to color half of it in this pink color. Then you could totally do that. Or maybe I want to do that with the C too, the inside. Now let's say I want to make this, maybe I'll add some stripes in here. And the more you fill this in, the more colors that you use, the more interesting it'll look. And so that's really the whole point of this, is to make it as interesting as possible. So you don't really want to rush on this. Again, I'm kind of making some of my own shapes too, which is kind of fun. And I'm just using basic shapes like circles, triangles, and then using just like line. You could make some polka dots in here. I mean, it looks more complicated than it actually is. And that's kind of the cool part. People look at it and say, whoa, how'd you do that? Another really cool thing about tin foil is that it really takes in sort of what you're drawing on. So what I mean by that is, like, if you were to flip this over, you can see where you've imprinted. You see some of these like lines and things. So it's like a totally different pattern and look on the back side. So you could get through all of this and decide that you actually like the print that it made, the impressions on the back side. So like I said, you could add some polka dots in here. And again, like I said, the more colors that you use, I just think it looks really cool. So I have, if you saw, my whole cup of colors, so I'm just I try to go back and forth between warm colors and cool colors. So again, the warm colors being red, orange, yellow, pink, and cool colors being purple, blue, and green. So I kind of try to flip back and forth between those two. And if I have dark blue and light blue, maybe I'll use both. And like I said before, you could do just like your name. You don't have to do every letter. But if you don't want to do that, like my name is Allie, so I would just do, if I was going to do my name, it would just be A-L-L-I-E. And that's not a really long name, and two of those letters are the same. So that's why I kind of like to do the full alphabet. But I could do my last name too. Or you could do your first name like a couple different times. That could be kind of cool. All right. And again, I have like dark blue, dark purple, light purple, different colors of pinks and reds. So it's really a good idea to kind of use all of the different colors that you have. And so we're actually using just shape and line. So even letters is a form of line to create this abstract work. And like I said, you really want to take your time with this and fill in as much as possible. I like stripes. I like to add lots of stripes in places. And see how I'm like utilizing, so like this was a K and I decided to turn it into a triangle here. So I'm using that space to be able to do that. So creating new shapes out of existing shapes. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm going to show you the next step, but I would keep going because, again, if I show you in my two examples, these are way more full and have more colors, but it does take some time to really fill these in. So, I will continue working on this, my other one, and post a picture of it in the comments, but for the sake of time, I will show you the next step. So the next thing that we want to do is we want this to fit on here. So you wanted to figure out which way you like it, which direction you like it. And we're going to actually glue this on here. But first, if you see on here, we have our totally designed and colored backgrounds. So I did a couple different things. This one I just kind of did some radiating lines, so repeating lines around my funky shape. Now in this one I added some funky like circles and squiggles, some of the lines that I saw in here. So that's what we want to do, and this is where I like to use crayon. So I know that my picture is going to kind of come to about here. So I might take a couple crayons and add some cool shapes and designs. Maybe you just want to add some circles, and you want to add these all the way around. Or maybe you want to add some stripes, or stars, or a combination of shapes. Maybe your favorite shape is a triangle, so maybe that's what you add. And again, like I said, using more than one color always works the best. You could overlap your designs. So I'm doing some kind of squiggles now over my circles. And I'm trying to fill in this border space. And you don't necessarily have to do this, but I do think it kind of adds a really fun aspect of this. So we could do... And notice how I'm doing like different directions of things. So I'm adding some lines now because in my actual tinfoil piece, I have lines, circles, triangles. So I'm kind of pulling those designs and adding them here. So let's say I'm going to try and get a green in here, dark green. Maybe I'll add a couple triangles. And you can use any color that you have, and even if you just have white paper and you want to just color the white paper, that'll work great too. I think the color paper is kind of fun, especially because tinfoil is silver. And the cool thing about drawing on tinfoil is that it's shiny. And it's not just using paper. So you've probably been using a lot of paper since you've been home. And this just kind of gives you something different to work with, something new. And that can be kind of cool when you're doing the same thing all the time. This just gives a different idea, something different. And even if your crayon breaks, like my crayon just broke, that's okay because you can still totally use this. And I'm sure you can find a use for broken crayons like I do all the time. Again, I'm just kind of adding some, and I like to fill it up. You don't have to fill it up this much, or if you just wanted to do some stripes, you could do that. I like to totally fill it up. Alright, so I did kind of around the border, and I know that my piece is gonna kind of fit in here, so I like to make it so it will overlap the side just a little bit. Now we're going to glue this down. So I think Elmer's glue actually kind of works the best for this. But you can use any glue that you have available to you. So I kind of flatten out my foil, add a little bit all along the edges. Again, you don't need a lot. And then I always do a little bit in the middle. And I'm going to flip it over. And let's say I like this way. I think it looks the best going this direction. I'm going to try and set it in the middle. Place it down. And if a little glue comes off the sides, that's okay. Alright. So we have this piece. And so this is basically done. And if you decide after you glue it on here that you want to add some more drawings, color in some more, you can totally do that. This doesn't have to be done just like the way it is. Like, I'm going to add a couple more colors, and I will post a picture of this when I'm done. And then you can decide when you're done. But when you have all these parts, this is your ABC tinfoil masterpiece. So now would be the time to clean up when you decide you like it the way it is. Again, trick. If you don't have permanent markers, then you can always, when you get to this point, spray it with some hairspray and then set it aside, let it dry. And that way, if your fingers rub over it, it won't make the markers bleed. So, when you get to this point, you like how it is, we can clean up. So make sure all your markers have caps on them and you can put them back where you got them. You want to make sure that all of your crayons are put away, your glue has its cap tightly on it, and if you have tinfoil scraps from when you were cutting out your piece of tinfoil, you want to make sure you throw those away. And then when you're done, you can show off your really awesome tinfoil masterpiece. So I'd really love to see what you made and how your abstract piece looks. So if you want to post a picture of what you made in the comments, I can even try and guess if you use the alphabet or if you wrote out your name. And I would love to see what you made. So post a picture of your photo in the comments, or you can even email it to us in the email provided in the written part of this post. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for another Cap at Home lesson at 1 and 2 p.m. today, as well as every Tuesday and Thursday. And if you are wanting to make more projects regularly during the week, we have all of our projects scheduled on our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We have all of our videos on every project that we've done. They're all on our social media pages. So make sure you're following us and stay tuned for more videos. Thanks for watching.